Assalamu alaikum. This is Aruj Muzaffar from the Department of English, University of Southern Punjab. We were discussing some topics of creative nonfiction, and our today's lecture deals with this boy's life's summary, its narrative arc, and section by section understanding of the term memoir. So, basically, in this lecture, we turn from authorial background and thematic foundation to a closer examination of this boy's life as a narrative. Since memoir are not simply records of lived events but constructed stories drawn out of memory, so it is necessary to understand how Tobias Wolff organizes this book, how the story processes, and why its structure reveals so much about the memoir genre itself. This boy's life offers an instructive model for students of creative nonfiction because Wolff's method resembles an almost novelistic unfolding where he arranges memories into scenes not as chronologically long form history but as a series of vivid episodes that accumulate into emotional truths. So, to begin with, the memoir opens with Toby and his mother Rosemary on the road. From the first pages, the tone is set in with a sense of escape, restlessness, and hope tinged with fear. This beginning functions symbolically as well as narratively. For creative nonfiction writers, it is an example of how to open a memoir with motion. Movement creates narrative propulsion, and memoir writers frequently begin with a moment of transition because transitions bring reflective tensions. Tobias is fleeing one life with the hope of finding a better one, and the opening scenes show the reader how a child builds fantasy as protection. So basically, Toby dreams of wealth, heroism, and strength. He tries out new identities and even considers changing his name as well. This sheer intensity of these early desires sets the foundation of the memoir's emotional architecture as well. And this emotional architecture is the next major movement in the book that forms around the arrival in Utah and then in a series of small towns culminating in Chinook and Concrete, Washington, where these early sections do more than describe relocations, they dramatize the instability of a life with a single mother, a woman who longs for stability but repeatedly finds herself dependent on unreliable or predatory men. Wolf is careful not to portray Rosemary simply. She is loving and gentle, yet flawed, naive, and sometimes weak in the face of manipulation. Students of creative nonfiction should notice how he balances compassion and critique together. A memoir writer may love the people they write about, but they must portray them honestly. That balance is one of the writer's key lessons, and section by section, the memoir unfolds with an escalating sense of danger. Toby's encounter with delinquent boys, the school system, and his own increasingly reckless behavior builds a layered portrait of adolescence. Scenes such as Toby stealing cars, forging report cards, or fantasizing about violence demonstrate the memoir's unfiltered thoughtfulness. Woolf does not glamorize or justify these actions. Instead, he allows them to stand as evidence of a boy desperate to assert control in a world where he feels powerless. And in class discussions, this part of the memoir prompts valuable reflections that how far can the memoir writers go in exposing their own faults? Wolf shows that the strength of memoir comes from revelation rather than self protection. One of the memoir's most compelling section involves the introduction of Dwight, the man who will become Toby's stepfather. Dwight is one of the most vividly rendered characters in modern nonfiction. A manipulative, petty, violent man whose cruelty is both psychological and physical. The member enters in a new emotional register once Toby moves in with Dwight in concrete. These scenes in Dwight's home, where chopping woods endlessly, the humiliations, the sudden burst of rage, illustrate Wolf's mastery over pacing and tone. So instead of describing Dwight abstractly, he shows him through actions, which is a key technique in literary memoir. Students often ask what makes Dwight so frightening. Woolf's prose answers this by showing how unpredictable, resentful people exert control through many small everyday tyrannies. The member sections in concrete therefore become case studies in emotional atmosphere, a concept essential to literary nonfiction. As the member progresses, Toppy's inner life intensifies. He develops fantasies of escape, excellence, and transformation. This is the most clearly expressed episode involving attempts to gain admission to prep schools as well. Here, Wolf shows a different kind of risk, the risk of hope. His forged transcripts, fabricated recommendation letters, and exaggerated essays are not framed as immoral action but as survival tactics. When analyzing this section, students should consider how memoir can present lying truthfully. And paradoxically, Woolf's admission of dishonesty becomes a moment of truth as well, where memoir as a genre allows. For this kind of complexity, it can show how people use deception in order to reach something genuine. The final sections of the memoir highlight Toby's escape from concrete through his acceptance to Hill School. And although this part is not triumphant in a Hollywood sense, there is no single victory moment. It carries emotional weight because it marks the fulfillment of the book's underlying desire for transformation. Yet Woolf does not portray this transition as a clean triumph or some achievement. Instead, the ending echoes the beginning movement, uncertainty, the fragile hope of reinvention. Memoir rarely tie their endings neatly because life does not do so. A strong memoir ends by returning the reader to the emotional question underlying the story rather than concluding it tidily. So, as students revisit the book, they should observe that how Woolf organizes his sections to build a cumulative portrait. He uses short chapters, episodic scenes, and sudden shifts in tone. The structure mirrors memory itself, which is rarely linear and smooth. The member is a series of emotional peaks: fear, shame, longing, defiance, held together by the consistent voice of the narrator, where the narrator reflects the boy he was, but he does not overpower that boy with adult judgment. This coexistence of past self and present self is a hallmark of memoir. So, in summary, this boy's life demonstrates how memoir can be built from fragments, how ordinary events can be charged with symbolic meanings, and how a personal narrative can reflect larger themes of class, masculinity, abuse, ambition, and identity. And as students of creative nonfiction, your understanding of the memoir must include not only content but what happened, but it should also be based on the idea that how to craft, why the writer tells the story this way, how the structure shapes emotion, and how the sections form coherent yet open-ended whole. In the next lecture, we will look at the additional interpretive elements, film adaptations, and how this member continues to influence literary nonfiction. I hope you have understood the core concepts of this lecture, and you have got the basic understanding of what memoir is about, what is the role the memory is playing over there, and how we can change our concepts um, uh, into looking at the things with a deeper sense of understanding, and by knowing the meanings that are not apparently told over there, and how we can feel some episodes of our life into some fictional work, and how some fictional work can narrate something which is visible into our own life as well. um, Thank you so much.